in 2024. You got your mini Trumps, right? You got Ron DeSantis down in Florida. You got Ted Cruz over in Texas. Pay attention to Ted Cruz. He's a funny guy to me, right? But just pay attention to Ted Cruz and look at his Twitter right now. He's just taken over where Trump left off. I mean, he is the funniest guy on the planet to me right now. I follow him just to laugh. But it's not going to be funny in 2024 and 2023 when he emerges as a viable candidate in that party.
It's a flip side of this horrible COVID crisis that when people couldn't work or people were home, they got a sense of, in a way, of what life would be if they didn't have to work 12 hours a day, flipping burgers at McDonald's or for a low-wage job. They got a sense that life doesn't have to be there, and it doesn't have to be that way. You know, the technology exists in the US that everyone should be, you know, we should be working 30-hour work weeks. You know, in the 1930s, people raised the demand for 30 hours work for 40 hours pay as an answer to technology, to keep everybody working. In many European countries, even capitalist European countries, workers get a month off.
Well, hello, everyone, and top of the day to you. You're with Urban Interest, and my name is Angela Matthews, your host. As you know, we're going to have some good stories and great guests today. We're going to talk about the strike at the cereal company Kellogg in Kalamazoo, Michigan, as well as Black people climbing Mount Everest. We want to go that high. But we're going to have that story as well. And then we're going to talk about the mayor's race in Detroit, Michigan, definitely heating up. And then also voting rights and politics. Yes, we need to talk about that, as well as Detroit evictions. So stay put, stay connected. We will be right back because these stories are hot and our guests are just as hot.
Movies, documentaries, TV shows, local, national, world news, history, and culture. No network can tell your story better than UIN because we are you. With us, you can become more than just a consumer. You become a keeper of the culture and empowered. Go to uintv.net, click on a channel to support and subscribe today. Do it now.
All right, come on, let's get to these stories. What started out as a local strike at the Kellogg cereal place in Kalamazoo has now gone nationwide. Workers are demanding that the cereal company get rid of its two-tier pay system. As we have told you, this is a workers' economy. They are making moves, making claims, and demanding some things that they normally wouldn't have had done pre-pandemic. Let's take a look.
So many different things all wrapped up into one. They want to keep all the rich and keep us guys down.
So we're out here today together in unity for not only the full-time but also the transitional employees that we're fighting for. You know, we fully believe that they deserve to make the same wages that we make.
We're willing to stay out here one day longer, one day stronger, however long it takes, but we are willing to negotiate with the company whenever they're ready to talk.
my goodness, 1,400 workers walking out. Workers from various industries across America are continuing to express their discontent over low wages and poor working conditions. Listen, for the first time in history, this is amazing, that Black and brown mountain climbers will take the challenge of climbing Mount Everest. I don't like high places, but kudos to them. They're said to be Mount Everest is said to be the most difficult mountain to scale in the world. I cannot imagine being that high up off the ground, but let's take a look at this story and see what the Black and brown mountain climbers are talking about.
Meet the 9 mountain climbers looking to become the first all-Black and brown expedition to summit the world's tallest mountain and hopefully inspire a few people along the way. Many have had the dream, but few have had the courage to reach the peak of Mount Everest.
You know, climbing Everest is hard, no matter which way you put it.
Philip Henderson is determined to be part of this elite group. The Colorado climbing instructor is part of an expedition called Full Circle Everest. The group now out to shift perceptions of what a mountain climber can look like. Since Edmund Hillary and Tenzin Norgay first reached the peak in 1953, just over 6,000 climbers have been able to reach Everest's peak. Less than 10 of them have been Black. What does Full Circle mean?
I really recognized back in the early 90s that there was a lack of representation in the outdoors. There's so few of us that we're kind of, you know, obligated in a sense and bound that we should be kind of, you know, bringing everything that we've learned and that we know and that experience and come full circle and kind of, you know, reach and pull someone forward.
The 9 climbers hail from all walks of life and from all across the country. A high school chemistry teacher from Colorado, an Iraq War veteran from New York. All of them bound by a common goal, to conquer the world's tallest peak and to change a few attitudes along the way.
Just because it's a group of Black people doing it doesn't mean that we aren't necessarily unskilled or we don't belong there. And so I think just showing that we belong there on the mountain and is motivation enough.
If successful, the expedition will be the first entirely Black and brown team to summit Everest.
Hopefully, we help folks realize it's challenging, but it's possible and it's accessible to all.
Oh my God, just seeing the mountain just brought chills to me. So we definitely will be praying for those mountain climbers. The group has been able to raise $50,000. That's amazing, to finance the climb, which is scheduled to take place in the spring of 2022. We would definitely keep our eyes on that story. That's amazing. It's challenging. It's all of those emotions that I'm feeling right now. Listen, the mayor's race in Detroit is definitely heating up. And if you've seen any report on the mayor's race, you would think that a reporter is writing, you know, for an all-white media. However, we're going to take a look at this story because UIN Broadcast has definitely been on the scene of every debate and following this mayor's race. So take a look and see what's going on and what they're talking about.
Duggan did debate in his races in 2013 and 2017, but in the primary, he routed Adams with 72% of the vote to Adams just 10%. So it's clear that the Duggan campaign is doing a little bit of political math when it comes to wanting to get on the debate stage.
To play in. The race for mayor has been tense, but not really competitive. Duggan won more than 70% of the vote in the primary in August. Adams, the second top vote getter, got around 10%.
As a candidate who got over 70% in a primary, still the only guy I know who won such a big election as a write-in candidate. I mean,
that was won by Secretariat by about a million lengths. I mean, he was out so far ahead that the other horses were just, you know, they were still back in the, you know, the back stretch.
Not in the screen,
and at one point, you can see Ron Turcotte, you know, riding along, and he looks over his shoulder, and it's like, what are you looking for? I mean, you have to know how far out ahead you are. Do you just want to like glory in the margin that you're ahead of? And so I guess I kind of feel like Duggan is Secretariat at this point. I mean,
you know something? because major news outlets are talking about this, then that means that the contender, Anthony Adams, is shaking some things up and making impact. They all state that Duggan leads by a landslide, the white media, but the race is over and that everyone should stay home. Absolutely do not believe that hype. Here's the truth. In the primary, Mike Duggan got 50,000 out of 450,000 registered voters. That is about 10%. We're talking about all registered voters. The rest of the candidates got 20,000 who said that they would support Adams. So Duggan may have gotten about 30,000 Black votes. The Black candidates got about 20,000. That was 5 months ago. Get that, 5 months ago. And since then, Duggan's record is being exposed, and Adams has made his case daily with the people that he will not debate him. Now, who takes that up and says, oh, I'm so far ahead that I don't need to debate you, which is, in my personal opinion, taking the voters' votes, just taking advantage of that and saying I've won. A DIP at Detroit IPTV informal poll showed Adams is winning. He's gaining some ground. However, November 2nd is about 8 days away. If you are seeing this broadcast, and if you are from the Detroit area, do not stay home. Go and vote. And if it's absentee voting that's allowed, do that too. You don't just get to slide into this race and say, I won't debate a contender because you just think that you've won. And he always sends someone out that looks like me and you, but Duggan won't say it out loud. Anywho, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come talk about voting and politics with my great friend, Big Mike. You know, we always have great conversations. So listen, stay put, stay connected. We will be right back.
911, what's your emergency? Oh my God, a child just died.
Signal 13 involving a child, the medicine route.
It is time to put the guns down. We've had enough. My future.
My future.
My future. Our futures are in your hands.
Adults, put the guns down.
Wanna play? Sleep.
Walk to school.
Visit my friends. I want to feel safe.
It's time. Time to end gun violence.
Our lives depend on it.
Adults, this is not a request.
We demand that you protect us.
Put the guns down. We have hopes. Dreams.
Goals.
Don't let a split second of anger with someone else take away my entire lifetime.
Help us live. Help us thrive.
Help us build a better future.
All right. Houdini said, when are we going to get to the good part? Get down to the good part. And we're about to get to the good part right now with our good friend, Alan Michael Crane, AKA the Big Mike, based in Virgin County, New Jersey. Come on in here, Mike. You are my good friend, and I just love you so much. I'm going to tell you about our Big Mike. Hey, good morning. So he retired after 25 years as an airline executive and was the CEO of High Rise Entertainment, but he couldn't stay retired, okay? So after retirement, he became the host of the Big Mike Show that is on 100.9 WXIR, that's on the FM station. And then he also is a writer for the Urban Information Network. He sits in and hosts Urban Interest for me, as well as he is the founder of the Trends magazine. I just want them to know who we got on the line. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. And that guy sounds a lot smarter than I am. But you know, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I don't know if he's smarter than you. I don't know. So listen, I always like to talk politics and voting, and we know that there's a whole lot of voter suppressions that's going on. We know that restricted voting here, suppresses voting there. Last week, President Biden was reported by Time magazine, said that he would be open to doing away with the filibuster and in pursuit of protecting Americans' voting rights. So what does this mean? We talk about the filibuster. Give us some information, some education about that. And what does this all mean, that what he's talking about?
Okay. So if you will allow me, indulge me for just a moment. I want to go back to something that you brought in with your mayor, Mayor Duggan, and the mayoral campaign in Detroit. Listen, I want to make this analogous. I want to bring this home so people can understand, right?
Yeah.
Something that hopefully many of us haven't experienced, but when you don't show up for a debate, and I think you hit it spot on, Angela, as always, right? You don't show up for a debate. I make it analogous to if you get caught cheating, man, woman, partner, whatever, you get caught cheating. You got three choices of what you could do, right? You can go home, face the music, baby, baby, please, right? You can go home with your shaggy on and deny, or you cannot go home. You just don't show up. And what your mayor right now, what Detroit's mayor right now, rather, is doing is the equivalent of not going home at all. Just sending a telegraph or something. It's unacceptable. It should be unacceptable to Detroit, all of its constituency, and all the voters. So I just want to throw that in there first. But getting back to your question and the filibuster, I've often said that. You and I have talked about this before at length. I've said it to anyone who will listen. There are three components in American politics in this experimental situation that we have going on right now that are inherently, I mean, from conception, from inception, geared towards being racist. And that is one of which is the filibuster, the Electoral College, and runoff elections. The most impactful being the filibuster, because at this point, which I think the first time that was utilized, I think it was created in 1806 or 7, and then, 1837. And then prior to when we got more modern in modern times, prior to World War I, was implemented under the Wilson administration, Woodrow Wilson. But this has, like everything else, everything has to evolve with the times. When the filibuster was created and utilized, when that rule of Congress, which is what it is, when that was used back then, it was for a completely different purpose, completely different process. But now with the evolution of our times, it's morphed into something else, and it's nonetheless racist as it was from inception.
So Big Mike, when we talk about filibuster, really, people, if you're not into politics, you don't understand what that is. You don't understand the importance of it. And so what is it?
It's a mechanism to, in simplest terms, in simplest form, it's a mechanism created by Congress, for Congress to utilize to keep people in check, to keep people in line, people with unfavorable opinions. If you have, as they say, the unsilent majority, right? You get a few people that may not agree with the masses, much like we see now. I'll give you a perfect example. 30 to 35% of this country right now is causing absolute chaos. Now, mathematically, how does that even make sense to you? I don't know. Somebody, I told you I'm not that bright. Someone get me an abacus. Help me figure this out. How 35% of a nation of 330 million people essentially are lauding control over the entire country. Well, that happens because when you have 30% of one party, if you were to take 10% of those people that say, you know what, no, I'm not really feeling this cultist thing, I'm not feeling Trump, and they might decide to switch. So the filibuster was created as a mechanism of sorts to make sure that 10%, yeah, you're going to have to get them. You're going to have to get them, plus a couple to make sure if you want to move your agenda forward. So it just avoids even the chance of a couple of people actually exercising common sense and fairness and decency. If they go, to the other side adverse to one's opinion, it avoids all of that.
So there's always this upheaval, it seems, that when the filibuster comes in, and I do believe the Republicans negotiated in some particular form was going to raise havoc or wreak havoc, so to speak, if the filibuster is done away with. So is this kind of what you're talking about with regards to it's a mechanism for Congress to keep control?
Absolutely. In the majority or the minority. And the thing is, you know, when you talk about President Biden, it really doesn't matter whether it's a Democrat at the executive level or Republican. It needs to go away, because what the filibuster in a sense does, that's why I talked about that 35% with purpose, because what it does is it kind of mitigates or nullifies the majority vote, right? Because now you've got these congressional members, if you don't sway them. Right now, look at Joe Manchin, he's a superstar. Kirsten Sinema, she's a superstar. They've each got their 15 minutes in West Virginia, who cares, and Arizona, who cares, respectively. No disrespect to those states, because I don't want to hear that. But I'm just saying that's how this happens, because, again, if they know that you can't even get your caucus in line, now you have to go out and get 10 votes on the other side for 3/5 of the entire quorum. That's almost impossible. So you have Democrats that are reluctant to do it, including, you know, President Biden. He's coming around a little bit, as you referenced, I think, in the New York Times last week. He's coming around, but the reason is because everyone's afraid, because they're thinking about precedent. They're not thinking about right now. See, keep in mind, if you change the rule of Congress, Rule 22 in Congress, then that's going to be applicable moving forward. So it's almost like, you know, we can't really think about now. We can't just think about us. What's going to happen, you know, 2 years from now, which I don't think we're going to lose Congress at all, you know, despite what other people think. But, and, you know, down the line, what type of precedent are we going to set? And you see the same thing with the release of executive, what Trump wanted to claim as executively privileged documents. The reason there's this hesitancy and this slow to action with that is because it's not because of now. Initially, it came out the gate. Yeah, let's do it. Here, take it all. Right. But now you set a precedent. You have to worry about what's going to happen when Biden's not in office, whether it's, you know, in 2024, 2028. Precedents are a dangerous thing. You got to be careful with it, rather. And like I said, when you change the Senate rules, which can be done, let me say that it can be done. But, you know, it's a slippery slope. But I think it needs to be done. We got to stop being afraid. Go ahead and bite the bullet and let the chips fall where they may.
You know, I think you're absolutely right about that. I do believe when Biden was trying to pass, I forgot what it is, you know, McConnell basically kind of held the filibuster, you know, torch to him. And so, you know, that I guess they came together and had some type of agreement so that whatever Biden was trying to pass, then it got done. But the thing was, do not touch the filibuster in simplest terms. So listen, what is it? So how does the Senate vote impact the Freedom to Vote Act?
Well, it goes right back, Angela, it ties right back into what we were just talking about. They're going to hold up votes. This is what Mitch McConnell does. And again, being the minority in Congress, his power, the power that he wields is incredible. And then that stems from that 35%. This is what I need everyone to understand, that 35% is such a powerful entity in that caucus, in what used to be the Republican Party caucus. I don't know what you call them now, but that vote is enormous. But now, and going back, and I want to intertwine these issues to answer the question. When you have senators like Manchin and Sinema who are in precarious political situations, when you don't have them, you've got them holding up legislation like the Voting Rights Act. What needs to be done is what I've heard many other pundits, you know, civil rights activists and leaders calling for, and that's a carve out. Okay, let's make this a standalone measure. And just like the original filibuster was intended, or the purpose for which it was intended, was to make people say, listen, come to the floor. First of all, you have to be present, and let's talk about it, because we want to hear what you have to say, Joe. We want to hear what you have to say, Kirsten. And you're going to have to answer to not just 35% of your populace or your constituents. You're going to have to answer to all of West Virginia and Arizona, respectively. They get to see your face and hear your words when you explain to all of us why you're against the expansion of voting rights. And that's a powerful thing. And that's what they don't want to do. So it's easier to just hide behind the filibuster. Manchin was supposed to deliver this modified form, this modified proposal of the Freedom to Vote bill, and he didn't deliver. And he knew he was not going to get 10 Republicans.
You know, I'm just floored at, you know, I don't even know how to even put a name to what we are seeing right now. But the people need to know that we have the power to change it, because you get those folks out of their cushy seats and you send them back to being regular, I guess, citizens. But the one thing that concerns me with that is them gravitating towards those who are like-minded like them, where that in out of the public's eye, then you can really start to plan some suppressive and destructive, you know, policies, wherever they may be. So that really concerns me. 19 states have enacted 33 laws that would make it harder for a million Americans to vote. So according to the Brennan Center for Justice, that is what they're reporting. 19 states enacted 33 restrictive voting rights laws. Why is that not a larger conversation nationwide? People are just enacting these things and nobody's talking about it. Why is that?
Because I don't know, because it's Monday, Angela. It's Monday. I don't know. I mean, look, I've been saying this. I've been saying this forever. People have to be fully cognizant and aware of the importance of state level politics. And I'm talking about your state attorney general. I'm talking about from your city council on councilman on up, law enforcement, everything else. Because what we have a tendency to do is we stay in these little microcosms of ourselves, right? And everything, we complain about all of the stuff that we see, all of the atrocities going on at the national level, but we don't tie those things into at our local and state levels. That's how these things evolve. So I think it is a bigger conversation than one may think. I don't think it's big enough by any stretch of the imagination. But I want to put this question out there to anyone that can answer. Why is it that we are always, we being people who look like me and you, why are we always on the wrong end of these debates? I don't remember a debate about when white folks can vote, right? Or how they can vote, or limiting the methods in by which they vote. I don't remember having these debates. And clearly, it directly impacts minority communities far more than any other, which you would think from a commonsensical standpoint would lend toward more focus, as you said, national focus, federal protections for what is obvious to me and you, because we not only see it, we live it. We experience these things every day, or people close to us have experienced these things. So it has to be a national conversation.
Oh, sometimes, you know, this just gets my goat, because I am definitely with you. Pay attention. And I have been trying to be a sounding voice in our city on the local level, to say that you need to get involved on the local level. And you wonder when people matriculate and then they're in these positions, and you turn around and wonder why. Why is because you didn't pay attention to the local level, which things impact us, you know, more readily than on the national level. So Big Mike, what are the tactics do you see coming down the line with regards to elections and voting? And then what are the chances, Big Mike, for Trump to regain the nomination for from the Republicans as president, their presidential nomination? This concerns me.
As it should. And first of all, I want to say these people don't matriculate, they evacuate. And I just want to piggyback on what you said. Detroit, Newark, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, wherever you are, please, DC, you know, get out here. Local is important, because the further they matriculate, the further they get away from you, the less accountable they are. That's politics 101. Just know that. As to, you know, what's coming down the pike, Angela, I wish I knew. I honestly don't know. Will Trump run again? I think that 35% is powerful. I will tell you, I think that the one deterrent is that you have enough candidates right now that quietly, they won't admit it, but they're going to run in 2024. You got your mini Trumps, right? You got Ron DeSantis down in Florida. You got Ted Cruz over in Texas. Pay attention to Ted Cruz. He's a funny guy to me, right? But just pay attention to Ted Cruz and look at his Twitter right now. He's just taken over where Trump left off. I mean, he is the funniest guy on the planet to me right now. I follow him just to laugh. But it's not going to be funny in 2024 and 2023 when he emerges as a viable candidate in that party. You're going to see it. Tom Cotton, Greg Abbott, who has just massacred Texas right now. I on my show a couple of weeks ago, I just told them to secede. That was my suggestion. Just go ahead and get it. Just end it. Rip the Band-Aid off and just secede from the union. But the damage that you see these governors and senators, respectively, that they're doing to their party, it just really depends on, is the party really to just throw their hands up and say, yeah, we don't exist. It's all about Trump. If that's the case, he will get the nomination. But if he runs his way through the RNC, if he were to do that, he will not win. He will not win. He won't get the college unless they continue the redistricting and the gerrymandering and the out and out cheating. That's what I see happening. And to the first part of your question, who knows? That was kind of a segue into that, but who knows what they're going to do? Could we revert back to the equivalent of the poll tax? I mean, do you lower the threshold to, what's as far as penalty or criminal records? Now, if you got caught with I don't know, whatever the weight is, I don't smoke, I don't partake of the herbals, as they say, but for those who do, God bless, Godspeed, don't get caught, because they can start doing things like that, for which we know Black and brown people are most often incarcerated by comparison enormously at an enormously higher rate than people who don't look like us. So it could be, I don't know, you're behind on your taxes, the equivalent of the original poll tax. There's so many methods that I don't put. If you asked me 10 years ago, I would think that I sounded ridiculous listening to myself talk, but now I don't. Not in 2021, certainly not in 2022. So we all need to be out and vote seriously in 2022.
Absolutely. Well, Big Mike, I love talking to you.
We can go all day.
We can go all day. But I want people to catch you on the Big Mike Show at 100.9 FM WXIR. Catch his show, everyone. He goes a little bit more deeper than what we talk about.
That's what I do. Jersey's in the building, but
Jersey is always in the building.
Urban interest.
And we love you so much. Thank you, my friend. I'm coming back and talking to you after the election, right?
You already know what it is.
All
Much
right.
love
Listen,
to everyone. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, my friend. We'll talk to you later. All right. That's my good friend, Mr. Alan Michael Crane. He's AKA Big Mike. He's my Big Mike too. I'll take it personal. Listen, catch him on his show at the Big Mike Show. Again, 100.9 WXIR. That's on your FM dial. We want you to stay put now because we're going to talk about Detroit evictions, and we're going to talk to attorney Jerry Goldberg, and we're going to see what's happening with these evictions. Folk are just running rampant today. Stay put to connect. We'll be right back. All right, everyone, you are back with Urban Interests. We're going to talk about Detroit evictions right about now. We know that this is something that is happening. It's happening all across the nation. In some areas, it's happening more aggressively. And so we're going to talk about what's happening in Detroit. We have attorney Jerry Goldberg with us this morning, and he is the founder of Moratorium Now. Attorney Goldberg, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Awesome. Now, we haven't seen you in a while. And so for those who may not have seen a previous interview with you and speaking, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what Moratorium Now is.
I'm an activist for many years in Detroit. I've been an activist for 50 years in the city of Detroit. And I was a leader as both an attorney and an activist in challenging the massive mortgage foreclosures that hit Detroit beginning in around 2005. They were really part of the scheme by all the major banks to really take the homes of Black homeowners. And over a period of 5 years, Detroit experienced 65,000 foreclosures, 237,000 people were driven out of the city. And we went from being the city with the highest Black homeownership rate in the country to a renter city right now. And many people don't want to shine light on what the role of these banks were in really what I view as the destruction of our neighborhoods. Up to 2005, Detroit had gone through many crises, but we still had intact neighborhoods. And the one thing about Detroit, it was a place where working people and poor people could own a home. And that was taken away with us by what amounted really to a fraudulent scheme by the banks, where they would go into people's neighborhoods. They would go up to someone who had a home that was paid off, a senior citizen, say, oh, you need a new roof, we'll refinance your home, give you the money to buy the roof. And in the meantime, they would lock them into a loan. There would be a teaser rate the first year, maybe $500 a month. But by the third year, the rate would adjust to $1,500 a month, which would be more than many people were making, and they would take their home. And unfortunately, the federal government came in and then bailed out the banks. They were paid full value on these foreclosed homes, and the federal government actually carried out many of the evictions in Detroit. And so one of the things that we try to do, and I'm working now with a coalition called People Against Corporate Theft. I actually now work with a group called Party for Socialism and Liberation, and we're organizing right now a rally today, actually, because when you look at the role, these same banks, just to go back a second, after these banks went in and literally destroyed our neighborhoods, drove a quarter of the population out, they put the city into fraudulent loans. And they were tied to what's called interest rate swaps, because the city needed bonds to raise funds to pay off the pensions. And they put the city into unpayable loans. And that's what led to the bankruptcy that literally led to the privatization of virtually all our city services, stole the pensions of the bank of the pensioners and city workers, and led to the water shutoffs, directly led to the water shutoffs, which began during the bankruptcy and were ordered when the Detroit Water and Sewage Department was taken over by the Great Lakes Water Authority on condition that they order mass shutoffs to raise funds to pay off the bondholders. During the bankruptcy, we even had a trial on the right to water, and the judge ruled that individuals without water, we've had 100,000 water shutoffs, more than that in the last number of years in Detroit. The judge ruled that the right of the water creates irreparable harm for an individual. That harm is a lesser harm than the bondholders being paid. So what's going on now is these same banks and corporations that really have a worldwide consortium called the World Economic Forum have decided to make Detroit their model for what they call urban transformation. And they're setting up a global office for urban transformation, if in all places in Gilbert's headquarters, to hold Detroit up as the model for what they want to do to cities all over the world and already doing to cities, particularly African-American cities in this country. We have a coalition to say no to that. We want to expose the role of the banks and major corporations and literally the robbing of the resources of our city and say, no, they don't offer us transformation. What they need to do is be paying reparations for the harm they caused, for the money they stole from the people of Detroit, and put it in the hands of the people who will know how to build, who know how to rebuild our communities. That's kind of what I'm speaking to right now. We have a rally today, and I think that puts the eviction crisis into perspective. Many of the evictions, Detroit, as I said, now we have 35,000 evictions a year. Detroit was a homeowner city. Most of these evictions are being carried out by investors. Many of them are two-bit investors who picked up their homes off of foreclosure for virtually no funds, and then put individuals into all they're into it is making a quick buck and are evicting people wholesale. And unfortunately, the courts go along with it. There've been a lot of federal funds that have been appropriated for rental assistance, but unfortunately, the bulk of those federal funds never get to the people. And we believe there needs to be a moratorium on evictions, moratorium on foreclosures, but even further than that, we believe that we need to put demands on those who cause the crisis in our city, which are the banks and major corporations, especially the banks that cause the crisis, to pay us back for what they caused. And Dan Gilbert, far from being the model for urban transformation, Dan Gilbert was the one who wrote most of these subprime loans. He always says, I wasn't the forecloser. Yeah, he wrote the loans, then sold them off to the banks. That's how he got rich. And now he gets $1 billion a year in tax subsidies that come out of our schools, that come out of our libraries, to build his projects downtown. So he'll throw a couple $1 million, say how he's helping people, but in the meantime, we're subsidizing Gilbert to the tune of $1 billion. All the tax dollars that come out of his development are captured by him. He gets them to pay to him. They're not paid to the city. All the increased property taxes from what he develops, they go directly to him. They're called tax captures. It's a scheme that's going on, and that's really what we want to expose, that if we're going to rebuild Detroit, if we're going to make Detroit go back to the great city we were, a city of a working class, and especially where African Americans held political power, it was a city where people could live in a decent way, where African Americans owned home, we got to take on those who are the really cause of those problems. And they go deeper than Duggan, though he's nothing but an agent for these banks and corporations. They go deeper than city council, and we've seen how all these councilmen people are getting paid off by these developers. They go by challenging those who are the real source of the problem, and we believe the source of those problems are the banks and corporations, and especially the banks in the recent period. And that's really the message, and that's been our message for many years in Detroit. And we fought them for many years, and we're proud to have a new coalition developed called People Against Corporate Theft, to go after the real source and those who we really feel are responsible for the crisis in Detroit.
Attorney Goldberg, what you have just shared is just so atrocious and heartbreaking. And my question to you is that has this gone on far too long and so long till, is it really, I guess, is it really an opportunity for the citizens, for the community, the residents to take back the city? Because this thread is deep. That's and right. It's, and the roots of it is so deep. So is that really possible, especially in today's times?
Well, that's a very good question. A lot of people will say it's not possible. But one of the things that I'm excited about is to see that the issue of reparations is being put on the city ballot. And it's tied into the housing crisis. But what's important is when we talk about the reparations, obviously reparations go back to hundreds of years of exploitation and robbery against African Americans. But in the modern era, from 2005 to 2015, 50% of Black wealth was eliminated nationwide by the bank subprime mortgage scheme. 50% of Black wealth. We believe, what's the alternative but to go after these? And we can't ever be afraid of going after those who cause the crisis, a systemic problem. And that's what made Detroit great. Detroit, when I came into Detroit in the early 70s, Detroit was a city where there were revolutionary movements, where groups like the League of Revolutionary Black Workers, the Black Panthers, the RNA, we weren't afraid. They weren't afraid to challenge the system. And we believe we got to go back to those roots now. And really, there's no way to rebuild Detroit without going after those who destroyed them. They're there, and they continue to make. They're making billions of dollars off the COVID crisis. Think about it. Though we as working people and poor people, we need to challenge the system. It doesn't have to be this way. There's enough wealth in this society that everyone should be living comfortably. The problem is it's going to a handful of bankers and billionaires. It goes to a Pentagon to wage war all over the world. We need to turn around that, and we need to build a movement that can address it. And Detroit, in many ways, when I came into Detroit, we were the forefront of that movement. We want to revive the tradition of Detroit. And one thing I'll just add is what I'm encouraged by is in the last year, it's not that we saw the Black Lives Matter movement. We saw We Can't Breathe. And these youth were coming out in the streets, and they were coming out to challenge the system, challenge the way, the role of police in this system that are agents really of big business against the poor and they weren't afraid to challenge it. And it was especially exciting. It was led by Black youth, but they were joined by many white youth and Latino youth. And because everyone understands that this system, all the technology that we now have, there's enough wealth now to make life comfortable for people. And what we're seeing instead is that people's lives are getting worse, wages aren't going up, the environment's being destroyed. What alternative do we have but to say, no, we as working people and poor people need to take back these resources from the corporations that essentially robbed them and put them in the hands of the people. And we believe that's a big task, but it's not an impossible task. And what is the alternative?
You know, Attorney Goldberg, seems like what you are saying in essence, and the simplicity of what you're saying, is modern day enslavement. That's what, you know, through these systems, through these policies, you know, through all of these particular, you know, ways that people in power are putting things in place to take from those who are already struggling, to capture it and then to enslave them, meaning if you want it back, you got to pay 10 times as much as what you paid for it, knowing that they can't afford that. But there's something that's happening across this nation, and that is workers are saying, we're not coming back into these atrocious work conditions and environment. So we have a plethora of jobs that are available, but we don't have people rushing to occupy those jobs, which is causing the trickle-down effect, such as establishments are not able to open from 10 in the morning till 11 at night because you don't have the workers. We just reported that workers at the Kellogg cereal plant in Kalamazoo, 1,400 of those walked off and said, we're not coming back. And they're joined by others who are saying, we're going to join together. So I get what you're saying. I'm hoping that these corporations and companies, city leaders understand that the power and the control is really coming back to everyday citizens.
Yeah. I think it's great what you just said. I could agree. And that's another thing that gives out. It's a funny thing. It's a flip side of this horrible COVID crisis, that when people couldn't work or people were home, they got a sense of, in a way, of what life would be if they didn't have to work 12 hours a day, flipping burgers at McDonald's or for a low-wage job. They got a sense that life doesn't have to be there, and it doesn't have to be that way. You know, the technology exists in the US that everyone should be, you know, we should be working 30-hour work weeks. You know, in the 1930s, people raised the demand for 30 hours work for 40 hours pay as an answer to technology, to keep everybody working. In many European countries, even capitalist European countries, workers get a month off. In some of them, they've instituted shorter work weeks. But in this country, where capitalism is nothing but what's determined savage capitalism, they want more, they want more, they want more. But we say no. That technology exists now, that we should all be living a comfortable life, not a working, like you said, not being slaves. And I think people got a sense of that during COVID, and it's the flip side. And I agree with you. Their people are fighting back. They can't get people to return to what and they're going to try to, and let me tell you, we know the system. They're going to try to starve people into submission. They took away the unemployment benefits. You know, they pay the big Biden plan that was going to help people. Suddenly it's being whittled down. You know, they're going to try to, but people have gotten a sense of it. And we need to organize those people as a class, and working people, poor people need to come together as one. And I think and I agree completely. I think that's what's happening. And I think it gives me optimism as someone who's been in the fight for many years. I've been a revolutionary since I was 18 years old. And I'm quite a bit older than that
50
now.
years is a long time, Attorney Goldberg.
But I haven't lost my optimism for the struggle, because I know it doesn't have to be this way. It does. People, guaranteed health care should be a human right. The idea that people can't have healthy water in the richest country in the world. When the UN rapporteur came into Detroit, she said that how the US was a degenerate society. She could understand poor countries people not having water, but in the richest country in the world, it doesn't have. And look what they're doing to the environment. You know, they're just look in Detroit. Every time the wind blows, we lose power. You know, every time there's a big rainstorm, people get. It doesn't have to be that way. And you know, even the water. You know, people ignore it, but you know why the water infrastructure is so bad? Well, because they put out bonds that were for infrastructure in 2011 and 2012. They sold $1.1 billion of bonds, but that money didn't go to infrastructure. It went to pay off interest rate swaps, which are nothing but crooked hedge deals to the banks. 537 million went to pay off the banks on crooked deals, and they are crooked deals, where one of 100 million went for infrastructure. That's what this system's about. They take everything from us, and I agree with you. You hit the nail on the head. I think people are beginning to turn the tide, and I think that's why young people are in the advance. I think that's why so many young people of all nationalities joined that movement. It wasn't just about opposing police violence. It was about opposing the system. And I think if we take that into the bread and butter issues, I think we can develop a movement that can turn things around. But developing it means that's not just focus on the individual political leaders. Most of them are nothing but pawns. Let's focus on where the real power is. And that real power lies on Wall Street. It lies in the banks. It lies in the major corporations who really are the decision makers in this world. And we can fight them because they can't get any wealth if we don't work for them. That's one thing. They don't do anything. We produce all the wealth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I just want to piggyback on what you said about water being just a human right. Why is it now that we've got a second crisis with water in Ben Harbor, Michigan?
And Hamtramck now, too.
You know, and we're always suffering. It's always the minority communities that they target to put their foot on our necks,
no doubt,
and make us, you know, susceptible to all of these atrocious, inhumane acts. It just really breaks my heart, but we got to keep fighting. Sometimes it gets, you know, tiresome. Sometimes I get tired, you know, but I know that I have to keep fighting because it is about the future generations, and we got to leave them something better than what we have right now. Right now is just blowing my mind about what's going on in my lifetime. I never thought that I would even see all of this craziness. But we can't take our eyes off of it, and we can't forget it. We can't forget about what happened, you know, on January 6th.
That's it.
You know, they tried to destroy democracy. And folks just want to breeze by it and say, oh, well, you know, that was then, but here we are now. You know, absolutely crazy. So what I'm going to ask you before I let you go, this is a great conversation. To what extent, you know, the crime is popping, you know, all of these killings is just very heartbreaking. So the extent that crime is connected to poverty as well as privatization and what impact that is having on the city, I think you probably touched on that portion. But let's talk a little bit about this crime that's happening. It's just out of control.
Well, I think you can't separate crime from the social character of society. And when people are living in a society where so many people are completely alienated from any kind of real existence as a society, you have so many making wealth, it's a dehumanizing society. And it's a society also that's built on violence. I mean, let's be honest, the US, you know, they talk a lot about Biden's bill, how much it's gonna cost, 3.5 trillion. That amounts to 350 million a year. That's a third of what the government pays on weapons every year, a third of what they pay. We live in a society that's built on violence. And I think, so if you combine the violence of the society we live in, combined with the social alienation that exists, I think that's the root of crime. You know, it's an interesting, I was just reading something on Facebook that pointed out, when Muhammad Ali went to the Soviet Union in the early 70s, and you know, we can get into the discussion of it, but the one thing he said is he didn't see any crime. Because in the Soviet Union, you had plenty of problems. We had full employment. Everyone had a job. Everyone had, he said, one of the things he noticed, there were 50 murders a year in the Soviet Union. And then after capitalism came in, suddenly the murder rate skyrocketed. So I think crime can't be separated from the social character of the society. And I don't buy that having more police is the solution to crime. It's come out how the police themselves are criminals. Look at what they've done. You know, while the Derek Chauvin trial was going on, which shone the light on police violence, there were 69 police murders during that trial. You know, so I don't buy that getting more police is the answer to crime. I think the answer to crime is providing full employment, full health care, not letting 90,000 Detroiters live in substandard housing. I think we can't separate the issue of crime from the social ills of the society and also from the violence of U.S. society. I mean, we are the most violent country in the world. And I don't mean the people, I mean what the U.S. does all over the world. You know, it bombed Iraq, you know, it destroyed Libya. You know, it sends its weapons all over the world. It's a system based on violence, and both parties are accessories to the Pentagon budget. So I view it within that social context. And I think if we live in a society, you know, police should be in neighborhoods to maintain order, not shoot people. And in most countries, that's what they do. So I think, you know, I believe the issue of crime cannot be separated. I appreciate those who are the victims of crime. And it just shows how dehumanizing the society has been. But let's humanize the society. Let's make sure our youth are working, have dignity, you know, can have a decent job, have decent educations, not schools that can't even guarantee literacy like our schools in Detroit. Let's make sure that these things exist. And I think we'll see a big drop in crime.
All right. So Attorney Goldberg, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for your activism. You're encouraging. You say you've been doing this for 50 years now, and you have no intentions of stopping. We can see that. Thank you for lending your voice to the masses as to what is going on and then what you are doing. You said there's going to be a rally today. Talk a little bit about that before we let you go.
Yes, as I indicated, the World Economic Forum, which really is the consortium of capitalists all over the world, have decided they're going to open up an office for global urban transformation in Gilbert's headquarters in Detroit. And we've pulled together a coalition called People Against Corporate Theft to say no. Detroit isn't the model for global urban transformation. We're the model for by the big business and the banks. We're the model for urban destruction by these forces. And we're going to say no to this office. What we need is a people's office, a worldwide people's office to come together on how we can take the wealth of society and use them to benefit the people, not the corporations. So we're having a press conference rally today. It turns out they were going to launch this forum this week, but they've postponed it to December 5th and 6th. So we plan on building more, and we're actually planning on having an international speak out where Detroiters can join with those who are fighting for social justice all over the globe. That's going to happen before this, so we can have our own voice. We don't want to rely on the rich to dictate to us how our city should be. We need to build our own agenda and to have Detroiters join with people fighting for social justice all over the world. So that's the rally that's going on today. And we're going to, anyone who's interested, you can put on my phone number. It's 313-319-0870. I will mention, you mentioned Kellogg's. I just found out there's going to be a rally in Battle Creek on Wednesday. I know I plan on going down there because it's good to see workers standing up at noon in Battle Creek as well. So people are starting to fight back, and I think it's going to continue. And I really enjoyed speaking with you. You know, I don't know if we've had an interview. Tim's had me on different shows over the years, but it's been a real pleasure being able to chance to discourse with you.
Well, thank you so much. Where is that rally taking place today?
We're going to be in front of Quicken Loans in Campus Martius, right in front of Quicken Loans at noon today. Obviously, it's a little bit of a rough day for a rally, but we're going to be out there today. But we plan on coming back and building. It turns out this global forum is opening December 5th. So we're going to be building for even bigger actions in the future.
All right. And that's downtown Detroit. Is that correct? Quicken Loans office,
yes.
Headquarters. All right, Attorney Goldberg, I know you've got to go because you got to get to, you know, that rally. Thank you so much for stopping by and lending your voice again to the masses as to the things that we need to keep our eyes on and keep focused on. It's a lot going on, but we've got people fighting in spaces for the right thing, for equity, for fairness and equality, and you are one of those. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
All right. Listen, everyone, we just talked with Attorney Jerry Goldberg. He has been fighting and an activist for 50 years. And then he's also the founder of Moratorium Now, and that's talking about mortgage moratorium. And he's also very well versed with regards to the renters moratorium as well. Want to turn back Detroit from being predominantly renter focused to home ownerships. And we know that banks and corporations have stripped residents from their homes illegally.
That's right.
Via policies and papers and rules. And we got to become conscious, and we got to stay focused and keep our eyes on what's going on. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and wrap up this segment of Urban Interest.
Okay, take care. Thanks again.
All right, take care.
Today, we bring you the first part of our global broadcast exclusive conversation.
The streets of Tahrir have once again been filled.
Key issues here at the United Nations Climate Change Conference remain unresolved.
Police are saying the protesters to move further and further away.
I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!
All right, everyone, thank you for staying with us today. This is Urban Interest. We talked about the strike that's going on in Kalamazoo, the Kellogg cereal plant. The workers are saying and demanding that the conditions change as well as pay. And then we also talked about Black and brown people climbing Mount Everest. They're going to do that in the spring of 2022. They've raised $50,000 for this particular expedition. We're going to keep them in our thoughts and prayers now that they're covered, that all 9 of them will be able to accomplish that particular goal. As well as we talked about the mayor's race in Detroit. There is the current Mayor Duggan versus the contender Anthony Adams. Remember that name. Elections are November the 2nd, but not only is the election for mayor important, we're talking about city council persons, at-large persons, the city clerk's position. You got to know what's going on, and you got to know who's connected to who, and you got to follow the money. So there are some dark monies that is happening and weaving their thread in politics. You really need to know that and keep abreast of that, as well as the voting rights in politics. We talked to our good friend Big Mike out of Jersey. Catch him on the Big Mike Show, 100.9 WXIR on the FM station. And then Attorney Goldberg talking about Moratorium Now. He's been in this for 50 years. You need to follow him. They are having a rally today at the Office of Quicken Loans in downtown Detroit. Folk are trying to take Detroit and enslave the people. It's a modern day enslavement movement. Simply put, open your eyes and watch what's going on. Listen, if you want to connect with us, go to urban.interest. That's urban.interest on our Instagram, or go to the YouTube page of Detroit IPTE. That's DITIPTV.com, our YouTube page. So we will bring you great stories and guests on Wednesday. Remember, November the 2nd is election. What happens on the city and local level impacts you and me and us directly. Don't let that day go past and you not get out and vote, because absolutely your vote does count. Talk to you later.